Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live. Thank you very much for joining us at the beginning of a week. We've been a little bit busy recently, hence there haven't been as many of these short sort of news live shows in the last couple of weeks. We've been putting together, to say we've been putting together some unique content is an absolute understatement. We've got some pretty extraordinary content coming your way over the next couple of weeks. This week we've got a few awesome releases, but coming very soon we've got some absolutely mind-blowing stuff that I'm really looking forward to bringing. So today we're going to be talking about a topic which is certainly focuses right now on the US marketplace in terms of drones, but of course when the US sneezes or the US catches a cold, we all sneeze type of scenario. So it's certainly something which is going to have an impact, especially as it of course is surrounding one of the world's largest consumer drone manufacturer. So let me know in the live chat, those of you who've joined us live, what you think, and we're going to come back to the live chat after I've gone through the main story. If you're new here, do hit the subscribe button to find out about more of these live shows and everything from how-tos through to the latest breaking news. So on to the main story, and we have actually covered the topic of a potential US ban for DJI products a number of times over the last couple of years. Mainly, it's been an analysis of proposed legislation or sanctions that actually nobody really expected to necessarily go anywhere, but the relentless nature of some of those seeking to banish Chinese drones, and at the moment specifically DJI products, has meant that behind the scenes the work to take action has actually never really stopped. We're now at a point where the most recent proposals are hovering around Congress, and that should start to cause some concern, certainly if you want to keep using your DJI tech in the US, that is. So in fact, this is so serious that the push that's happening at the moment, that DJI themselves have come out on their official social media channels to rally support through a call to action for drone operators to contact their local political representatives. Today, we're going to take a look at that call to action, but also look at some of the key elements that could mean this becomes something very serious. We'll look at the current two-pronged approach to creating what really is a difficult situation for DJI in the US right now, and how that might impact things in terms of the global drone market. This really all centers around a bill, the Countering CCP Drone Act, introduced by Representative Elise Stefanik, which started as something that actually many people thought would die potentially in committee, but has now gained more and more support across Congress. Proponents of the bill raise what they feel are serious national security concerns surrounding DJI as a company, which is why the focus at present is on DJI in particular, rather than completely looking at the sector in terms of what's named within the acts, etc. They allege that DJI drones are providing data on critical infrastructure across the US directly into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, instead of dying out at the committee stage, as some previous attempts with similar bills have, the House Energy and Commerce Committee passed it on to the next stages in Congress with a unanimous vote. The reason this becomes something concerning is when you look at the previous bills passing through Congress itself seeking to restrict or sanction China, they have pretty much all passed either unanimously or very close to it. So it would seem that voting through bills of this type is something that really could happen, resulting in the bill ending up on the president's desk for signature. So what is the meat of the bill? How will it impact your DJI drone, which of course is the most important thing here? Well, this isn't just another attempt to restrict EMS or federal users of drones. This one will actually end up impacting every single drone DJI sell and have sold previously, in fact, within the US, United States of America. The legislation proposes adding DJI to a list maintained by the FCC under the Secure and Trusted Communications Network Act of 2019. This would block DJI's drones from running on that essential infrastructure in the US. This would prevent even the most basic of consumer drones from being flown legally, essentially. As you will have seen from many leaked videos of upcoming DJI drones, it is often the FCC filings that give away the product's arrival. That's because any device that needs to use transmissions, as does DJI drones, between the controller and the drone itself, you need to apply for a license from the FCC to be able to fly that drone in the United States or sell that drone in the United States. It is these applications that often tell us that a new DJI drone is coming round the corner, of course. Well, this legislation will prevent DJI from basically gaining any more of those licenses. In fact, it stops them from even applying. And it appears to provide the powers to retroactively cancel the licenses already in place for existing drones. So this really could impact everything down to your Mini 4 Pro. Now, DJI have had plenty to say on the topic, as you might expect, and the accusations of data security or security in general, or even the closeness of the company to the Chinese government, has been something rumbling on for many years. DJI have taken steps to combat what that they see as misinformation by having independent research carried out, as well as a range of initiatives to try and combat the situation. They usually have this information on their blogs and issue press releases, but it seems they are concerned enough to warrant posting directly on their social media to ask US drone flyers and others who might be interested to take some action. So first up, let's take a look at that post and have a quick read through it. It's a short one. Here it says, a bill against DJI is expected to move in the US Congress in June, which would impact US operators' access to DJI drones. This applies to recreational, commercial, and government use. If DJI's FCC authorizations are revoked, US operators would no longer be able to access new DJI drones, and their existing drone fleet may even need to be grounded. This bill is based on inaccurate claims and contradicts a technology-based policy approach that would raise the bar on drone security overall. So the links at the bottom there actually lead you to, the first one is a blog post from DJI and to a drone advocate a group who are campaigning on this issue. Now, again, even the drone group, the DAA, has been attacked by Elise Stefanik from Congress in terms of their links to DJI, because DJI apparently pay for the website, etc. So there's attacks left, right, and centre here. But those two links will certainly provide a lot more information and give access to be able to notify your own representative. For DJI to make this statement, in my opinion, for DJI to make this statement on their official channels, usually reserved for posting about products and engaging with their huge consumer audience, shows to me that they're expecting that the worst could really happen this time. The list that is driven at is, sorry, excuse me there, the prompt has gone slightly wrong. Okay, yeah, sorry. The list is driven at getting as many people as possible to reach out to their political representatives and make them aware of the damage and issues that it would cause. So really what they're trying to do is get you as drone operators to basically motivate you with this call to action to reach out to your political reps, basically. This would, of course, have a pretty devastating impact on the drone industry and the consumer drone market within the US. There will be many ripple implications to impact drone users pretty much the world over as well. There will undeniably be a huge void in equipment available, of course, within the US in particular. And we're yet to fully consider the enforcement side of this because again, obviously, it's something that we're fighting at the moment. Just because the license is revoked does not mean that the drones in your hand today will automatically brick or anything, but with the added visibility of remote ID, those two things will certainly mix to make even unlicensed flying pretty much a real issue. That is a conversation for perhaps a darker day ahead should this bill pass. So we'll come back to that one in terms of how they might enforce it, because we're trying to fight it in the meantime. You will no doubt have seen from some of the output from many people out there posting about how this type of legislation could actually cost lives, as DJI drones are still used in search and rescue and many other essential activities in the US. So the implications here are really serious in terms of, yes, they're going to be obviously restricting the hobby, they're going to be restricting commercial use, but there are actually lives at risk. That sounds like a soundbite. That sounds like something that somebody may put in a press release, etc. But genuinely, if search and rescue teams, etc., if fire teams don't have DJI drones to actually work with, then you have to start asking yourself what they will replace it with, because there simply isn't the numbers of drones available or the quality, frankly. This isn't the first time that DJI found themselves on a federal list and subject to sanctions. In 2020, the Department of Commerce added DJI to its entity list, preventing US-based companies from exporting technology to DJI. Then in 2022, the Department of Defense added DJI to its own blacklist, further limiting the use of DJI by US government departments. So you have to take a moment here. With all of this very serious action being taken against DJI, you might expect the list of evidence against them to be exhaustive. You might now expect me to go on for the next 60 minutes presenting all of the evidence that would drive government departments, an entire government, to focus on this company like this. You'd probably expect to see evidence of many instances where DJI have committed offences or taken action which puts the security of the United States or its people at risk. Well, we don't really have anything on that to show you. Here at Geeksvana, we always strive to show both sides. Whilst there are serious issues in terms of the Chinese government and their changing rhetoric to the rest of the world and highly publicized political struggles, how that should and does filter down to this specific company, DJI, is something of an unconnected line of dots at the moment. We have accusations, we have deep dives into code and data, and a lot of discussion around a lot of theory work. That's all very well and good. What we don't have, much to the frustration of the average drone user in the United States, is any actual evidence in regards to DJI themselves. In stark contrast to other major moves to brands such as Huawei, or however you want to pronounce that, there simply isn't the information to show us why it's necessary in this case. Those politicians who are acting and actively promoting and seeking this effective ban of DJI drones would, I am certain, be more than delighted to present their findings and offer even redacted evidence, even if they were to say, here's the evidence, but we can't show it to you, etc. Can't show all of it, but here are the highlights. And if that evidence was to beyond question implicate DJI, well, I'm pretty certain that they would want to do that, but it just isn't there. And I have done a lot of digging. I have spoken to Congress staffers. I have attempted to reach out to various offices, had all sorts of emails back, all sorts of information back, and very lengthy PDFs, etc. But nothing, there is nothing there that actually comes back and points to any kind of actual evidence. And as I say, for the last 2 years, I've been digging into this. That in turn opens up the door to many counter accusations shared not only by DJI themselves, but many people within the drone industry worldwide. It is an environment politically where you can get so-called anti-Chinese legislation through with cross-party support fairly easily at the moment. So the general feeling in terms of political direction certainly helps those seeking this particular ban. Other moves, such as the Drones for First Responders Act, which is a bizarre name for it, as I'm sure you guys know right now, which seeks to impose heavy tariffs on Chinese drones to somehow magically promote and help US companies to succeed, does show to me that there is a commerce angle here as well. It shows that there are pressures to hold back foreign companies to assist American growth. Although this type of policy often only creates a void of technology, if we look back in the history, and it can even stifle any form of competitive innovation. You then have to, of course, have Skydio enter to the conversation. Now, as regular viewers of Geeksvana will recall, I have often referred to Skydio as the drone company, which isn't actually a drone company at all. From the very beginning, to me, it seemed like Skydio were more focused on their AI and algorithm than actually being a giant in the drone space. I would not be surprised if they are one day swallowed up by Boeing or similar to support the future of advanced air mobility, so air taxis, etc., that type of thing. In the meantime, the company is focused in on drones specifically for industry, government and military use. even removing themselves from the consumer market after just one release. Although, again, I do not think that they ever plan to stay in the consumer market. Just personally, the first consumer drone was really a proof of concept to me, something to show what they're capable of, whilst their lobbying efforts really took hold, which is the important part of the Skydio story related to the DJI ban situation and why I bring them up here today. They have, as a company, funded a lot of lobbying activity in Washington and afar. This has been focused on creating standards that we didn't really realize we even needed, and forming an industry, really within an industry, where only US IP drones can be sold and used by military and federal users. This has created a lucrative market for Skydio, one where the competition is scarce, with the exclusion of Chinese and other drone manufacturers. We even saw Parrot, a French drone maker, transfer their IP to a US military approved manufacturer to ensure that their Anafi USA drone passed government approvals and standards. You cannot deny that the level of lobbying to create this closed industry within the drone industry itself will have had an enormous impact on the minds of representatives who are then approached over this newer bill seeking to effectively ban DJI drones. The narrative has been so strong against drones, Chinese drones politically, for so many years now that it really would take a lot to defeat that, in my opinion, and have the system only look at the evidence. In terms of the impact on DJI, it would of course be significant, but they will certainly survive a US ban, in my opinion. There are larger markets out there which are openly welcoming DJI products, and we would likely see design and development focus shift a little bit more towards those markets. We've already seen products like the Osmo Mobile and the RoboMaster series developed for specific marketplaces outside of Europe and the US primarily, and this would of course be a widening trend with the US market if should it drop off. It would of course hit them hard, as it is a massive marketplace to lose, and I would expect to see some significant changes. However, do not hold out hope, and I've heard this being spoken about by other people, that perhaps this might be something that happens, but do not hold out hope of there being a solution in terms of getting around or reversing this bill if it comes in. You are unlikely to see a DJI America spring up or similar, because the issue here isn't that the product is made in China, it is that the company itself and links to the government, etc. And that isn't going to change. The level of change required to Americanize, I suppose we would call it, DJI into an acceptable entity simply will not happen. So don't hold out hope that that's going to save the day. Also, once in the political system, it is not the fastest at changing things back. And the entire time there is an anti-Chinese feeling out there, which I would not expect that to change too quickly. Bringing changes to Congress to lessen sanctions on a Chinese company, were this to be brought in, is simply not something we're going to see in the short to medium term in the US. So if you are motivated to keep using your DJI drones and you want to see the company continue developing products for US use, then as per the DJI post, we're going to have the links in our description straight after the show, you really do need to step forward and reach out and contact your political representative. This is something that, if it happens, will impact every DJI drone and will not be something that I would expect to see an easy way round. So don't wait for someone else to solve this or for the situation to simply drift away. There is perhaps a little danger here that we have been hearing anti-DJI narratives for so many years now, and for consumers, nothing has really changed. So it might be that many people think that this will potentially just go away too. Okay, so let's head over to the chat and see what people are saying on this one. The chat has been buzzing by as we've been talking, so I will just scan back up to the top here. Again, thank you for joining us in such high numbers, especially as we've been off air with the outside broadcasts and the other content that we're bringing. It's good to see you. A lot of the regulars here. Dan the Drone Man, I for one am getting wound up over the technically inept government members being able to make decisions on behalf of people who are technically adept. One of the issues, yeah, I do agree with you, Dan, and one of the issues that I have with that is when we were back when we had one of the moves from the FCC, one of the FCC heads, and that one was actually talking about the fact that they could see your heart rate through your shirt from the drone and that type of thing. And we don't quite have that kind of descriptive text with this particular ban. But yeah, I agree with you. Some of the things that they have suggested could be happening is absolutely incredible, frankly. Stuart Meek, she's as nutty as a fruitcake. Since she got elected, she has a background in intelligence too. Wait until they find out about all the companies that they actually majority own. Yeah, it is one of those things, to be honest, though, Stuart, that with lobbying, with financial interest, with everything else that's going on, it's such a difficult thing to really always clarify everybody's interests in things, which of course is the idea of having something go to committees and also then something going to a vote in Congress, etc. Then you have the democratic process getting involved, which is supposed to counteract that. We'll have to wait and see that if that actually happens. IW drones. So we don't really own these drones. We just rent them if they can revoke licenses. We should have been told this. Yeah, I mean, it is technically in the terms and conditions of all these drones. Here in the UK as well, there is actually a as part of the terms and conditions, it does state that obviously you have to control these drones to the licenses that are given, etc. And those licenses are provided to DJI for that. John Coopy, DJI is nervous as heck about this. I noticed an increased number of drone videos on Billy Carr's channel too in the last few weeks. They have known that there was a serious problem coming. Yeah, and I think that it's very difficult because, and I've spoken to you about this, John, ourselves over Messenger particularly, but it's very difficult to prove a negative. And we hear that a lot in this particular conversation, but it really is. And without opening up what is, DJI are a market leader. They have, the companies that would love to know how everything works, all of the code, really have full access, etc. The companies that would love to have that access to that are far bigger than any other drone company. The algorithms that they build, the way they do things is incredible. Their drones are absolutely, and their products are absolutely fantastic. So that's part of the problem, is that without actually opening up their entire company and giving away essentially all of their trade secrets, it's very difficult to know what they can do. But of course, asking for this direct help is there. Jake Sloan, hi Jake, good to see you. Hope you're well, sir. People need to reach out to their reps and tell them how devastating this will be to the US, from public safety to the tens of thousands of small businesses that would be shuttered overnight. And, we're talking to somebody here with Jake in terms of somebody who's extremely successful within the video production side of things, and also on the TV and movie production side of things with drones. And Jake knows very well exactly how that will impact things in terms of people having to find something else when often there just aren't anything else. Even when we go across the FPV side of things, and of course the O3 air units and the DJI goggles and all of the transmission systems, etc., that are used there, it's incredible, and it just won't. It will be devastating, is a good word for it. Happy 3D printing. I don't know why they're targeting drones, as I don't like this thing, but that thing is okay when 90% of electrical equipment for sale in the USA and around the world has components or are Chinese made. And the Chinese made thing isn't the issue here. They've kind of tried, in my opinion, to float along that side of things, but the Chinese made thing, just that, isn't really the issue here. They are suggesting much deeper issues in terms of the company, again without proving anything. But it's interesting that it has got through committee stage this time, in terms of without that level of direct proof. But yeah, people say this to me all the time in terms of the Chinese made thing, but it actually isn't directly related to that as such. But it's a very good point still. Jake Sloan also says, especially since they're discussing revoking already approved drone FCC approvals. Yeah, and that is it here. That is here in this DJI post, where they talk about the fact that they're going to, and their existing drone fleets may even need to be grounded. Now, to actually revoke existing FCC authorizations, I've heard a lot of people online saying, what happens in terms of the drone that I've just bought for $1,000 and now I'm not allowed to use it? Is the government going to compensate me? Do I get to be able to return that to DJI, etc.? There are so many questions, and revoking older ones would just be absolutely shocking. John Coopy, and then Jake Sloan says, I did, and unfortunately my reps are idiots. They came back to me with a canned response, spinning this as a good thing. Okay, right. And that is the problem, isn't it? Is that even though so many of us within the community have cohesive arguments in terms of why this is such a bad thing, the drone industry, the drone community is a blip in terms of the financial might of any nation, frankly. We are we feel like a big community, but we're a relatively small tech community, specialized community. And the problem is actually getting that information across to people. Now, when DJI put something out and they show lots of the recent videos that have come out. John's mentioned some of the interviews that have been across on Billy Carr's channel, but also things like actually from DJI Global themselves, where they're sharing people's work, they're sharing search and rescue efforts, they're sharing even things like research into whale activity, etc. Of course, they're able to dismiss that as marketing. It's just the company, showing off and marketing, and any company would show that. So again, it does come down to that problem of how do we get that particular narrative across to politicians. It's very, very difficult. Dan the Drone Man, even if it doesn't affect any other country, the money DJI will lose from losing the US market may impact future improvements to their tech. Interestingly, I was in a conversation with the DJI chief pilot. It's around spin up, and I'm forgetting his name now. And he did actually say this on air when somebody raised the question of this, and that's a good maybe even 3 years ago now. So that shows how long we've been having these kind of conversations. And he actually said that the US is something like the third largest market for DJI. So he felt like the company would continue, and very much as I was saying, they would adapt and just go after other niches, etc. But it seems incredible. And if you go back to the part of my video here where we talk about the evidence, it's not as if I've been able to say, okay, here's all the evidence. Do you agree with it? Where's the balance? Normally with a story, with any story, even somebody who's been an idiot flying their drone and they've been arrested and prosecuted, etc., there might be another side to the story. For instance, they've actually decided to plead guilty to those charges. So those charges haven't seen the light of an active defense. And so perhaps some of those charges would have gone away. Perhaps some would have been lessened by evidence and that type of thing. So to me, when there's a guilty plea, even though the headline is dramatic that, drone pilot jailed or whatever that might be, there is always another side to it, especially if they decided to plead guilty. And it's the same with this story. And as I say, this isn't like I've picked this up from DJI's post the other day and just decided to run with this. This is something which has been rumbling for years, and has been something which I have read just about anything I possibly can, reached out to anybody I possibly can. I've had discussions with UK government departments on this, with the CAA, with the UK police at a national level in an interview on this channel. So it is something that we have had a lot of discussion surrounding, but it's something which the evidence just isn't there. And to think, and as you're saying in your comment there, the impact if from DJI losing the US market, and how that would impact it. Yes, because I agree with you. Obviously, it's going to be that percentage smaller, and have that huge marketplace no longer available to it. But for that to happen without any evidence is just, I keep waiting, and I keep thinking, sitting in the wings, reading everything I'm reading, having the conversations I'm having, and thinking, okay, at some point we're going to have perhaps a more serious attack, a more serious approach from somebody that's going to tell us what's actually going on and why, and the actual evidence. But it just hasn't happened. And it's not, as I say, it's not as if there's a bit, there isn't. Yes, as Jake Sloan's saying, I usually only catch Sean's live streams on replay. That's the time difference, and I know Jake often puts a lot of these videos in the background to play as well whilst he's driving across Alaska. I always imagine every journey that you're taking, Jake, is several hours long, even to your local grocery store, and I imagine you fully kitted up in full survival gear whenever you go out, like almost like a zombie apocalypse movie. But there we go. That's exactly it, Jonathan. Yeah, if this ban does go ahead, do existing DJI drone operators get free Skydio replacements? They really, of course, there is no talk about that side of things. Jake Sloan, the problem is that Rep Stefanik had a staffer who now works for Skydio as their government liaison. So strange that all this legislation keeps coming from her office. Yeah, it doesn't really support a deep dive, does it, Jake? Which is really unfortunate. But again, you would hope the system is there, that the committees, the votes going out, etc., is there. I think normally, and as I say, as I said in the main story part of this video, normally I think that that's okay, and normally I think that that would happen. But we do now have the perfect storm of the anti-Chinese political feeling globally at the moment. Frankly, it's here in the UK as well, and we're now told to fear the Chinese in a similar way that we were told to fear the Russians. Frankly, it's a similar thing. Frankly, I just need to press that button there. Sorry, something was flashing on my screen. So yeah, we're now told to fear the Chinese in a similar way to how we were told to fear the Russians. So it's a perfect time, it's a perfect storm in terms of getting somewhat absurd legislation, and it's only absurd because everybody's allowed their opinion. But so I'm not detracting from opinions, and opinions are extremely healthy. But it's only absurd because there is just no evidence, and that's really what I want to see. And as Jake Sloan is saying there, I completely agree. Skydio still doesn't compete with DJI. I've been using the X10 for the last 6 months, and there's no way that they can manufacture enough to keep up. I really don't think that they have drones in their mind. And if you look at the way that the company's grown, at the investment schedule of the company, and the way that they're forming their board, the people that are coming on board, that is I suppose you would now call it an AI company, but that is an algorithm. That is their software is king there. And I honestly do believe that it will be snapped up to be used in cars or future AAM or both, etc., by a very large company one day. And of course, in the meantime, they've had it's something which in the meantime is actually causing all of this trouble. And as Akirasho says, they're good to see you, sir. Hope you're well. Smells of McCarthyism. Yeah, I mean, it has all of that, but we're all out here. It's almost like we're all outside the glass dome screaming in at Congress about all of this, but they really can't hear us at the moment. John Coopy, the First Responders Act is such a farce of a name. Shame on them using the think of the kids, think of the first responders guilt trip. Yeah, and it's a very negative political tactic and angle to take these days. And we see it here in the UK as well. We're not going to get too political because we're talking about the drones and what you can do. But it is something which is happening more and more, where people will use, bizarrely, one side of it to the other. Yeah, exactly. You're exactly the same as I was saying, Jake, that the consumer market was their test bed. We gave them all the data to train their AI to get to where it is now. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yes, Drone Views Media, you're right. They tariff the hell out of Chinese EV vehicles to make them go away, and now they're outright planning on banning Chinese drones. But interestingly, of course, there is an element, and I'm not defending the tariffs on anything, but there is an element, at least, with the Chinese EV vehicles, that it would flood a market where there is an existing US thriving economy in terms of EV vehicles. All these companies have been told by government, you need to throw lots of money into EV vehicles. It's the future. We need the carbon footprints to come down. We need you all to do this. Companies like Jaguar saying that they're going to be all electric by 2030, etc. And a lot of that is driven by government asking them to do this, and in terms of saying that the future plans for environmental policies will force that to happen. If they were to then turn around and say, okay, that's fine, but they're very, very cheap, and we're talking extremely cheap Chinese EV vehicles are now flooding into our marketplace, or are about to, and we need that to not happen, then there's kind of almost a balance and check to it. That it doesn't make sense necessarily, but there's something there. With the drone side of things, there isn't a marketplace that they're necessarily looking to protect from that point of view. So it starts to fall a little bit foul on that as well. But I 100% agree with you there. Let's see, we've got a few of the other names here. Alakazaba, hopefully I got your name right there. And not a domestic monopoly, a foreign owned one. Okay. And Dog whistle Sharon saying hydrogen is the future. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it? Mad Hatter saying China is straight up. Sorry, I'm actually say your quote properly. China straight up is a closed system. They don't play fair. Any companies that want to do business with their people have a sponsor company, then steals all of their IP and knocks it off. Look, and I'm not here to say that China's wonderful. I'm not here to say the UK or any state is wonderful. And you know, there are, as per some of my previous videos, there are hugely concerning things in the Chinese system. Recent laws, as recent as 2017, that insist that companies have to open their systems and books and cooperate with intelligence services once they're at a certain size, and also laws that make it illegal for an individual within the Chinese society to refuse to essentially spy. That's the only way of really putting it. There's a more wordy way of putting that, but that's essentially what they're doing. So yeah, and I'm not in any way, shape or form trying to defend or anything else. I'm talking about this. I'm trying to get us to separate things and look at this from the point of view of why stop this drone company in particular in the US. And that's something which we need to really look at. And that's something that if you care about using these drones and you agree that there isn't any evidence, you need to follow those links and potentially put that forward. How much of an impact it will have, only time will tell, but at least we know we've done something about it. Lawrence W., welcome. In the US election race, the question of homegrown tech and industry should come up. This should be a wake up for British industry too. We need the skills and infrastructure to make ... anything. I completely agree with you there, Lawrence. Completely agree. And there really isn't enough focus on it. And then we end up with this bizarre situation essentially. And I just can't justify it. It's not as if it's, Sony and Microsoft and others have well, I say Sony don't have their drones. They do, of course, but not quite at the level or the consumer side of things. It's not as if this is an Xbox versus PlayStation thing or something where there is another marketplace. There is nothing else like it. There is nothing else like DJI, and we're being asked to essentially hand them over in the US without any clear evidence, basically. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Really great size audience for our first show back. And I wholeheartedly appreciate you all coming to watch this. The links that are on the DJI post will be straight in the description after this video. So do go and have a read, especially have a look at the drone group there as well, and see some of the things that they're saying and some of the things that you can do in terms of contacting your reps and being able to hopefully do something about this situation, because it's getting more and more serious. And as I say, when you get them, the DJI themselves posting on their own social media, they would much rather be talking to us about the DJI Mini 5 and other things coming up, etc. It's a big step to go through the process in a large company like that and to bring it down for that situation. It's a large step, so it's a big deal that they're doing this, and we need to take it as seriously as they are effectively. However, that then leads you as an outcome. And the Drone Dad, thank you very much for being a member of the channel for 20 months, a supporter plus a supporter of the channel. Thank you, really do appreciate it. Thanks as well. I did see a couple of other people with their membership things and one super chat. I really do appreciate it. We try at the moment to get through the story. I used to have live streams, and we've been going for nearly 40 minutes, and I try to get the story part out of the way at the beginning of these live streams so someone can watch 10-15 minutes and get the story and know what's going on without having to listen to me witter on too much. So I've tried to restructure them, so apologies that I don't focus on the chat earlier on, but as I say, I appreciate you all coming over. Later this week, I've got a video coming out for the UK drone guide side of things, which is the 5 apps that I recommend. In fact, I say you must have 5 apps to help you build your confidence as a UK drone flyer and fly with lots of confidence out there. And then we've also got something a little bit more controversial coming up on Friday, but I will tease that enough there. But excellent. Thanks, everyone. And as Steel City drone pilot Paul says, Sean out.